Morning, everybody. Hope everybody had a good weekend. 8:10 a.m. Hope everybody had a good Father's Day. It is June 16th, and of course, the market is shrugging off that down day on Friday because the market shrugged it off in the beginning, but then it sold off. But now here we come, Monday morning, and we're like basically back to balance, right? Big week this week. FOMC. Now we closed on Thursday for Juneteenth. And then I'm pretty sure, this Friday is quad witching, which is expiration of futures, futures options, index options, and stocks. Well, they call it quad witching. All right. So, gonna have to change my futures. Um, Now, as far as the volume there, I usually switch over to the next contract when the volume is greater in the next contract. Actually, probably should have checked that today. Um, but that's what's going on. And actually, while I'm doing that, let me just check that because I probably should have checked that. So give me 1 second. I just want to check that real quick just to see. Take me 2 seconds just to see where we're at in the current contract. Take a second. Here we go. Oh boy. So I'm looking at it now, and in Think or Swim, it's already moved on to the next contract, but the volume is still greater in the contract prior. So I'm going to stay in that one, but I probably will roll it over. Okay. Interesting. All right, let's get back to the show here. All right. So, yeah, this market's nuts, as usual. All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use market profile, volume profile to find structure in the markets, along supply and demand, gamma exposure levels, the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That's my edge. It's the way I look at markets. Okay. You also use the anchor view ops. Also use market internals. That lets me know what's going on under the hood of the market. And that's my deal. Okay. Now, hopefully, if you're new, you can subscribe, set an alert, have a cup of coffee and water. Listen to me. I give you the down low, the market news, the economic calendars, leaders and laggards, the general story of the markets. Okay, I hope you can join me. All right, even if you're not a trader, I believe the first 15 to 20 minutes, anybody can listen to it. Just understand what's going on in the markets. Okay, so I think that's pretty important. And then later on, we go over a bunch of stuff, daily charts, and we go over long and short trade scenarios in the ES and the NASDAQ. All right. And I think we can get right into it here. Let's just get right into it, the watch list, see what's moving markets today. All right. So, Ethereum is leading the pack, up 3.43%. Bitcoin's up 1.59. Russell's up 1.16. The Nasdaq's up 0.82. ES up 0.65. Dow's up 0.60. 10-year yield's up 0.47. Silver's up 0.34. The dollar is down 0.18. The 30-year bonds are being sold, down 0.30. Gold is down 0.49. Crude is down 1.07%. And the VIX is down 4.85%. We're back under a 20 VIX. Okay. We're bouncing. All right. We're bouncing back right into balance. We're kind of erasing, like I said, this war that started. It's probably getting priced in. And then we'll probably eventually just move on. Now, the only other thing that could happen possibly is if we get involved, the U.S. gets involved in this. That could get a little more tricky with the markets. But if it stays the way it is, just like the Ukraine and Russia, eventually you just move on. It's priced in, and then you move on. We just have to see if crude spikes up to like $100 and something a barrel. That will affect our economy. But we'll have to see. Okay, we'll have to see. All right, moving on to the Mag 7 Plus. Let's look at that. And here's our little Bitcoin proxy here. Coinbase is up 2.55%. Now, a lot of these are going to be up pretty nicely. AMD got an upgrade. They're up 2.48%. Tesla's up 2.04%. Broadcom up 1.26%. Nvidia's up 1.6%. Meta's up 0.84%. All right, we'll go down to the lower here. Berkshire Hathaway, Netflix, Microsoft. So there's nothing really negative on the board here from this bounce. All right, if we're going to look at the top sectors here, let's just look at them real quickly. Uber leading the pack 1.45. Snowflake, Qualcomm, all up. Okay, the laggard is really just Chevron and Exxon down here. All right, moving on to sectors. All right, this is how you gauge. All right, if I wanted to say semiconductors are leading, that's usually a risk on. Okay, so it's up 1.18%, followed by discretionary up 0.79, Tesla, Home Depot, and your Amazon technology, that's your Apple, your Nvidia, the Microsoft. All right, financials up 0.74. The only negative here is energy. I don't really know why energy is pulling back so hard. I gotta see, because they just obviously went parabolic. So they're down 0.12. They're down 0.12. All right, now we're gonna move on. We do a little market internals recap of Friday. Let's do that. Friday was interesting. I had a nice. I initially tried a short. I would say I wasn't. I liked it. I wasn't in love with it, right? And then I watched for a while and noticed that the market was failing at the most traded price of the week. And I thought there was a good chance we could fall back down. We did. It was a nice trade. However, I had to take. I'll just show you right here. I had to take. I had to pick up my daughter from a half day, so I literally like shorted right here. Right, stop loss at the high day, and it ripped all the way down to here. Where'd it go? Like right there. In that candle. My target was 5.99. I put a stop right above here, right here about, and it got nipped. Got nipped in this candle actually, because I had to get my daughter from the bus, and then it wouldn't have never hit my even entry, and then of course it hit my target, and then just fell. That would have been a beautiful trade, still a nice trade, but that was a sidebar. Here's the internal for the day. Very mixed, very mixed. We opened up, we were kind of weak, we bounced, and you thought everything was okay, and then we fell apart into the close. Okay, you can see here, tech got weak, financials are weak. Now financials weak. Visa, MasterCard getting hit because Walmart, I think it's Amazon, and somebody else is talking about stable coins, which can hurt the fees paid to credit card companies. So that's why Visa and MasterCard have been got hit so hard. All right. All right. That's your market internals. There's not much to glean into here. Up, down. Okay. When we were up here, we weren't that strong. That's why it gave me a little bit of confidence to short, and that turned out to be a nice trade. Okay. Now let's get into the economic calendar. In this week, we have FOMC. So FOMC is on, what was that, Wednesday. Okay, that's really the big thing this week. Markets closed on Thursday due to Juneteenth. All right. So that's the big thing. Obviously, it's a really big thing for this week. All right. Now, as far as news, I don't really think there's something crazy out there this weekend. Obviously, there was a lot of strikes going on still with Iran and however we say it, Iran, and Israel. All right, let's look at some of this news here. Nvidia's pitch for sovereign AI resonates with EU leaders. Microsoft lays out data protection plans for European cloud customers. Crypto giants set for EU green light amid growing regulatory rift. Let's see. Victoria's Secret faces fresh activist fight from Barrington Capital. Let's see. think there's too much that I'm going to get into here. That's not that I didn't see. That's earth shattering. You can see here the AMD Piper Sandler raised the target price to 140. All right. Yeah, that's about all. There's nothing much in the juice, that much either. There was Trump saying that U.S. involvement in Iran Israel conflict possible. I thought that might have took the market down because we did initially go down in the overnight on Sunday, but then it just bounced. And let's see what investing here. If it doesn't have anything stock related, I'm probably not going to get into it. Yeah, because there's really nothing to talk about. That's earth-shattering news for once. All right. And I think we're going to move on to the daily charts here. All right. Let's move on to those. So the market did something, I guess, a little significant. All right. If we look at this, if we just look at this little rise up here, you could see what it did. All right. So market opened up right here. And what did it do? Obviously, we know it pushed down right to the previous month's highs. Then it went up to last week's highs, the previous week's, tried to accept price here and it couldn't, and it rejected, and it winded up closing down here. Okay, 9 EMA dailies here. So we basically had all these candles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days taken out, right? 5 days, and now we're bouncing, right? Where we finish 597, but where are we at now? 601.20. 601.20. So if we just get into this little balance, 601.20, look at that. It closed here, closed here, and we're all the way up here, back at the highs. So we're basically erased this move as far as it exists right now. Okay. If you look at futures, you can see right here, right? Pretty nice move back. Went all the way down here, right? And now all the way back here. So pretty much erasing that drop. So we're kind of back to like a bounce, right? Moving on to the Qs. Here's the Qs. So the Qs, what did it do? Also went back to last month's highs, right? Took out all these days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like the ES and the SPY. Didn't reach the previous week's highs. Notice that, right? Closed all the way down here. All right, but where is it at now? 531.52. 531.52. 531.52 is at the highs of Friday. Like I said, if the market's nuts, it's probably pricing in this war that's going on. Let's look at futures. Okay, you can see right back here in the middle of all this crap, right? Like I said, back into balance. Okay, that's that. Let's go over to our bond market, triple-headed monster time, and see what's going on there. And again, this 10-year yield is just middling. So it tries to make a move. It is in a little bit of a downtrend right here. We'll see. We'll see what's going to happen for now. Dollar still bottoming out here. Have to really see what goes on here. Now the VIX, that's your 30 days out of fear. You're hedging, right? We did push up nicely here all the way up to the 21. Now we're back down to a 19.67, right in that 200-day moving average. Still should get decent range. This week, the volume right now is not good so far on a Monday. Now remember, this week is a 4-day week with FOMC. All right. So check this relative volume out here. It's not good at all. So ES is 64% of its relative volume, and I believe my settings are for the last 20 days. 46 in the Nasdaq. So this volume is not that great. Now we did have pretty nice volume. So um, it doesn't look that bad, but it's relative volume. You got to remember that. All right. So now we get into our hourly charts. All right. And we'll just do some quick analysis here. Just some quick analysis here. So here's your ES. Let me get my marker out. Okay. So we pushed down. We lifted off. This is the U.S. China trade pause anchored VWAP right here. We pushed off, went all the way up to the most traded price of the week. That's about 60.22. Let's just call it. And that's where I got short. You notice that this is the this is the CPI anchored VWAP, and you can see that right when it ran into that with this supply zone here, that's where I got short on Friday. Okay, and we're just breaking that anchor VWAP, and guess where we are, folks? I say this every week. We're back at the most traded price of the week. No surprise there. Okay, no surprise. Those are magnets and walls, and the markets, when they're indecisive, usually go back to them and settle. Okay, you did have a downtrend here. It's pretty much broken, and we're just in this mess. You can see it, right? If I zoom out, look at this. I mean, it's like, let's say this is the range, and we're here, right? It's kind of messy. The only thing I might, like I said, this is a big supply zone. It's been resistant. It's the most traded price of the last week. So, like I said, it's pretty much the level I'm looking at. But like I said, it's just not a great area. It is resistant. That's where this swing high is. So, this could be a possible move back down to here, and we're just in this large balance range. Don't know. Don't know what's going to happen. Okay. So let's just look at the Nasdaq. Like I said, there's not much to glean when you bounce this hard. Okay, here's your Nasdaq. Big range as well. Broke this downtrend as well. Okay, this is the anchored VWAP from CPI. That's kind of held the market as well. See, the most traded price of the week is also here. That's around 21858. We're back there again, right? So here's the swing high, getting a little bit of resistance from this supply zone. So this could be resistant. Very well can be. Okay. And we just came up again like a higher low, right? Made a low here, made a higher low, and now we just worked off this move. Right? A lot of indecision. A lot of indecision. Okay. Anchored VWAP from that U.S. China trade pause right there. Okay. So this is a very important level, obviously. 21858. So we do have the important levels here at the most traded price of the week. Okay. We could very well take a nice little dip from there. I didn't show you on the other chart, but this is the anchored VWAP for the month of June. Pretty flattened out. So we have to see. Right now, buyers are back in control of the month. Okay. Like I said, there's not too many nuance in this chart. It's really not. Okay. Just have to see how this turns out. All right, that's your hourly chart. You can see they're very similar. the Nasdaq and the ES, both at the most traded price of the weeks. Okay, both challenging this anchor view off from CPI. Do we go all the way back up to this level, 60.50 in ES? I don't know. Same thing with the, let's call it the 21974 level in the Nasdaq. I don't know. We just have to see. All right, we just have to see. All right, I think we can move on. Let me just change my workspace here to the, we'll do some market profile, volume profile analysis here. Now remember, this might be the last day you see me in this contract. So the levels will change. The levels will change. Let's see here. ES, here we go. Alrighty. Let's look at the profile. So it has a little bullish imbalance to it. There's our value area right here and a little bit of excess. So more volume to the upside, right? And now we're right at that most traded price, 60.21. So that's what's going on there. If we want to recap a little bit of Friday's session. So we opened up here, right? Came down, kind of had a double bottom here, ripped up, failed, couldn't in this supply zone, okay? Failed that supply zone in the previous week's highs right there. That was my short, and then we just ripped down, okay? We just ripped down. All right. So let's look at some levels together. All right. So where are we at now? We're right here. I told you that much shorter price of the week, 60.21. That's what price is. Looks like we got a little weak high up here. Some poor excess here. And we're getting resistance right where we got resistance on Friday. All right. So that becomes an important level. So from, let's call it 60.29, Friday's highs. Okay, right there. And 60.21, the most traded price of the week, that becomes a confluence high. That's a very important level. We also have a big supply zone here. Okay. So now finally I could talk about inventory for once. We are pretty close to 100% net long. So that's the only short activity to this much. Long activity, and the price is at the upper end of the range. Okay. So whenever you have inventory like that, right? When you're 95% net long and you're at the top of the session and you're at a key resistance area, you can get a nice correction. Okay, because overnight hands are usually weak hands. Okay, and they will cover. They will liquidate their position. I'm not saying this is an all-out sell-off. I'm just saying from the overnight, everybody's long, pretty much. And you're at the top. Any sort of weakness will get a nice correction. So just be mindful of that. That's why I'm talking about it. Okay? Just be mindful of that. Going to look at some more nuance here. Now, our next level, of course, of resistance is 60.51. It's another confluence high right here. All right, that's another key level of resistance. Okay. Now overnight lows are all the way down here, and of course we can't not talk about the 69.20 level with this demand zone, and that's your most traded price of this year. Okay, it's the most traded price of this year. All right. And we have our demand zone here. All right, so this is actually an actionable place we're in. I just hope we stay here. All right, I just hope we stay here. All right, let's get right into scenarios now. We will start with the short side, actually, because I think if we stay here, it's a decent opportunity because we know we're close to 100% net long, close to 100% net long, okay, in supply at the most traded price of the week, close to the previous week's highs and Friday's highs, okay. This is actionable. So right here, what I would like to see, you're in supply, you try to push up, you fail, come through here. There's your most traded price of the overnight. That's around 6,000 and probably 5. If you come through there, you're going to get some selling, and maybe we get to the close of this demand zone here, right? Probably get a bounce. And if you're holding on to your short, if we rip through the most traded price of Friday, you got some single prints in the overnight. Maybe we go down, test the overnight lows, 59.44s, and go back here. I don't know if that happens, but that's just the scenario. Okay. If we manage to break this and we go up to here, well, this is the next level of resistance, 60.51, and it holds. Maybe we push back to here, right? That could be decent. And then see if you can make a move, right? It's probably the only things I'm interested in here, right? Because you get this nice supply zone right here. So I'm not going to be long from here at all, right? I think that's really all I want to talk about as far as the short. Now, as far as the long, just makes it a little different, right? So if we're looking at longs here, we're already up in this area. I'm not going to long here. There's supply zone here. There's the previous week's highs here, Friday's highs here, supply zone. Like, there's just a lot going on, okay? So if I'm just want to be long bias, right? I know we just came up from the bottom, and because we're 100% close to 100% that long, I expect some type of correction. Now you can pull back to the most traded price of the overnights and try to work off this supply and try to break this 60.51. Okay. Next thing, I'd see a pullback into this. You got two anchored VWAPs here. Okay. Month to date anchor VWAP right there, and your week to date. So this is a pretty powerful level right here, and the close. So anywhere from 59.96 to 59.87 is a possible buy point, and see if you can make your way up there. Okay, that's probably all I'd be interested in as far as longs. Now, yeah, we can come all the way down here to this monster level. You'd be so weak that you definitely could get a bounce, but it's just like a hard to know when the bounce. It just makes it more difficult, right? So you could fall really quickly, get a little bounce here. Okay, that's the ES. Moving on to the Nasdaq. Okay, here's our Nasdaq. I'm loving the new Nasdaq chart, boy. You can see it so much better. Glad I changed that. Thanks to a guy in another Discord I belong to. He said, "Hey, it's hard to read your charts." Now I like looking at this Nasdaq chart because you can really see the levels, and it's great. It's great. Okay, so now structurally, let's look at the Nasdaq. Pretty balanced. Okay, and we have similar levels to talk about here. Excuse me, I think I'm gonna sneeze. Give me 1 second. Oh yeah, that was a good sneeze. All right. So our 218.55, most traded price of the week here, lines up with the overnight highs and Friday's highs. Okay, that becomes a confluence high. Confluence high. There's a big supply zone up here. All right, with the resistance of 1977, you can clearly see it here. Okay, and again, pretty much this one's not as much, but this is probably like 85% net long in the overnight. So everybody's pretty much long from the lows. Okay, pretty much long from the lows. So we're in a very actionable area. Okay, very actionable. Now we have this demand zone. Okay, this lines up with the anchored VWAP for the week. And the month to date anchored VWAP is right here, lines up with the most traded price of Friday. Okay. Now, one thing I will have to say is this is a very incomplete, poor structure in the NASDAQ on Friday. Okay. You don't have that excess. See these excess tails? Usually every auction ends with that. When it's incomplete, it's susceptible to get corrected. Okay. Same thing with this overnight. See, notice how this um, doesn't really have a tail. So two profiles back to back without those tails. All right. We can even split it out to show you what it looks like in bars. Okay. So notice there's a cluster here Friday and a cluster again. Okay. The more times you knock on that door, the more susceptible it is to get broken. Okay. All right. We'll keep that on there like this. I forgot to do that for the ES. Okay. Oh, did I really just do that? Hold on a second. Okay. So here's what we're looking at. All right. So we're going to start off with some scenarios here. Now we do have a big level here as well. Let me just point this out. Overnight lows. That's your two. What is that? Your 21505 down to like this big level here, 21435. That's your most traded price of the rolling year in this year. This is just a huge level. That's your line in the sand, macro wise for the Nasdaq. Okay. Now let's get right into it. Start off with this nice short that possibly could be a nice short right off the bat. All right, let me just set this up. Okay, so right here, 2185, there's a lot of confluence here. All right, Friday's highs, overnight highs, most share price of the week, supply zone, a lot of confluence. That's why I like it. So if I'm a short, I want to see it pop through here, break that poor structure, fail, lower high, come through, and you got a lot of levels to come through here. So this would be your forced support, anchor view up for the month, most share price yes of Friday. If you come through that, next thing is this demand zone. Okay. If you can break through this and hold, yeah, you're probably testing the overnight lows. That's your 21505, and then possibly go to the major level, major in the Nasdaq 21435. Right? That's your bull bear line for the year. Bull bear line for the year. All right, now also, I would say you can come up to this supply, try, fail, and possibly go down. And I don't think you go down all the way to here. You probably go down to somewhere in here. That's the only shorts I'm looking at. Okay. As far as the long side, let's look at it. Okay. So for me, we're at a very big resistance area, right? Reject it, reject it. Okay. So I would look for a pullback to here to possibly push up, break that level, and try to work through this supply zone. Okay. Maybe get to last week's highs, 22,094. I don't know. I don't know how much big moves this market has in it before FOMC. Okay, that's number one. Number two is another pullback into this demand and possibly see if you can break this and go higher. Remember, if we do fall down into this area, that's the big major level 21435. We bounce, but I don't think we bounce that high. And we should be weaker, so I'm not as interested in that at all. Okay. Other thing I could tell you is this would not be a long I'd be interested in at all because it's a big supply zone. But if we did push up and start to hold this level at 21855, the most traded price of the week, we could work off. But I don't think this would be just a rip and you just start ripping. This would be a hard move. So I'm not a big fan of it. It could happen though. All right. That's scenarios for today. All right. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Smash the like button if you did. Okay, that'd be much appreciated. Okay. And as always, if you're new, subscribe, set an alert. All right. Hopefully you enjoy your coffee or tea as I give you the market story. All right. And the market news, economic calendar, and so forth. All right. Hopefully you enjoy my analysis. And as always, please ask questions if you have any. Because I know some of the stuff I talk about is like, what is he talking about? I understand that. I was like at that one point as well. But now I fell in love with the way this market is set up for me every day. All right. This is how I like to see the market because the reason why I use it is because it gives me an ability to make a game plan very easily based on all these major inflection points. Okay. Based on the major inflection points. All right. So we have a plan. All right. I'm not being honest with you. That short I have my eye on. I just have to see how the market internals act when the market opens, right? Because that's going to tell me what's driving the markets. Are we weak? Are we strong? Right? Remember that overnight inventory, that's very key, is close to 100% net long in the ES, close to 85% net long in the NASDAQ. Okay? And the overnight hands are weak hands. So they'll liquidate really quickly if there's any pressure. So that's why that makes that short a little bit more probable, right? Not an all-out sell-off, but just a correction, right? So hopefully everybody understands that. If you don't, leave me a comment or a question, all right? Now, if you want, if you like, you can join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link, and you can see my commentary during the day and join me live. All right, you can ask me questions. I will let you know why the market is doing what it's doing. I am never guessing. I always know why the market is doing what it's doing. Doesn't mean that I'm trading like that. Because I always say if I'm live, my edge is also to not do anything. All right? That's also an edge. Knowing when there's nothing to do. Even though I can read what the price is doing, what possibly we can make a move next, but if it's like difficult to be like, where would I enter? Where would my stop be? And I just feel like we're going to go lower because the internals are telling me. It's not always a trade. So that's what makes it hard, right? Markets are hard when you're executing and laying risk out. For me, they're easy to read. But those are two different worlds. Okay? Two different worlds. All right, so join me in there, or everybody can see me tomorrow morning in my live stream. All right, so everybody have a great day. Remember, no trade is a trade. Hope everybody stays green today. And either I see you in my Discord or I'll see you tomorrow morning. All right.